Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outreach with Reggie. I am your host, Reggie Holloway, and it is an honor and privilege to be in front of you today. Today, we're interviewing Mr. Kevin Cripe, who is an education expert and author. Kevin Cripe is a motivational speaker, author, educator with over 27 years of experience inspiring students, teachers, and communities. As an elementary school teacher in Modesto City Schools, he founded an after-school chess program that transformed the lives of hundreds of students from socioeconomical disadvantaged backgrounds. Over 2 decades, his students competed over more than 200 tournaments, including 14 national championships, with many becoming first-generation college graduates. Today, Kevin shares his passion for empowerment and empathy through keynote presentations for schools, parent organizations, churches, and community groups. His talks focus on creating student success without frustration and fostering compassion across diverse communities. He's spoken internationally, including at the Innovative Schools Conference in Atlanta and the Chess in the Schools Conference in London. Kevin also is the author of The Learning Spiral, along with several children's books blending storytelling with lessons of resilience, diversity, and hope. And I'm honored to welcome Mr. Kevin Cripe. How are you doing today?
Makes me sound way better than I feel some days. I need to listen to that almost every morning just to make me feel good about myself. Wow, thank you so much. Thanks for that invite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that being said, I'd like to start off by asking, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I was like I said, I was teaching for 27 years. Lived in Panama for a while, and then Costa Rica for a while. Thought what I need to do, like it here, and going like life is amazingly good for me, and I just feel blessed right now.
Well, that's really good to hear. And I'm happy to hear that you are being blessed and the Lord is blessing you in more ways than one.
Every day when I have my little quiet time, in the morning, I am just thankful, and be thankful. Um, Single quality I like most in children. It doesn't mean those children can't have some rough edges or they can't talk too much, but the kids that are appreciative and thankful and come back and say, "Thank you, Mr. Kelly." Those kids have been bred and wanted to thankful.
Absolutely. Just having that gratitude
Yeah,
as we that have everything that we encounter. That's where the fruits of appreciation and thankfulness and just peace and knowing that we have peace to be within our day. That's a gift.
right. Well, be
Like,
thankful even for the things that are not good sometimes. That's a hard thing, but it's the peace that comes with that. That no matter how big the storm is, I'm all right. I you know was Peter did. You can walk on the water if you're focused the right way. And it's always no matter what. And I can complain sometimes. I don't like some things,
yeah,
but just to be thankful and to be appreciative, they're in the right way. That's what I want. Like I try to do. Not perfect.
with that being said, I want to kind of get into the beginning, right? What was it like entering the education system? Well, what was it from the lens of, all right, before anything, this is what I want to set out to do. I want to be a teacher. Or was it something that you initially wanted to do?
It wasn't for not particularly the best reason. My mom was a teacher. My dad
Hmm.
was a teacher. It turns out my older brother was a teacher. And so every year before school started, my sister and I would get dragged off the week before school started to my mom's classroom, and we would set up her classroom for it. We'd help her, and she'd say, "Sharpen these pencils and do this, and get the pencil, get all this, get the box ready, and get the desk ready and clean this." And we hated it. We're all our friends were out playing, and we're there stuck in this classroom, and we looked at each other and we said, we are never going to be teachers. Never, ever in our life do we want to do this. This is so wrong. And I remember my mom, we would put tape on the ground where the desks were supposed to be, and the desk had to be right on that tape. So if you moved them an inch, you got to move them back right on the tape. This is the craziest thing. And so both my sister and I ended up becoming teachers. And of course, one of the things I do is put a little tape on the ground and make sure the desks were in the right. And I just do exactly. And so we all became teachers. I don't think I genetically or environmentally had a choice. Eventually, I tried to sell some hot tubs for a while, and but now I better go teach. And so I got into it, and it turned out. I remember my first interview. They had two positions open at a school, and there were four candidates for the school I was at, which was Shackelford Elementary School. And it was a school with one of the lowest test scores, the highest poverty population in the district. And so I was one of four people they interviewed. The first two people they chose didn't want to teach at that school. They just didn't like the environment. Whatever reason, they didn't like the environment. So I got the job kind of by default because I was the last candidate. Apparently, I didn't interview well, and so I ended up teaching at Shackford and at Bret Hart. And the first time in my life, class in no class, class, sleeping and something and really had to learn about how we could see over what the reality was.
Okay. So last podcast we talked about early exposure to things, right? And that being early exposure to most or early exposure to facing what you see like first in the institution of family, or what is able to be discussed. So when you talk about some of your early experiences, that being growing up or going navigating the institution of school, what were the conversations like surrounding like when you saw poverty and within your family?
With within my family, my mom and dad were both teachers, and we grew up, and I'd say middle class, upper middle class area. We were not exposed. It wasn't. It's weird because my dad grew up with 11 brothers and sisters. He grew up very poor. In fact, one year, the story of my dad and all his family lived in an abandoned chicken coop. Okay,
Mm,
they had water without electricity. That's just where they lived, right? And
yeah.
yet, because my grandmother and grandfather didn't make it through, I don't think elementary school. They uh, they valued education and they valued faith. And we remember going to grandma's house and grandma's art singing hymns and just a wonderfully happy person.
Mhm.
We knew the story. What But we were never exposed to that. But we got the blessing of the generations of prayer, the generations of working hard, and I think every single cousin that we talk to that get to know is thankful and appreciative of that blessing. Um, and we didn't really experience it. And so when I came in as a teacher, um, was aware what poverty was through my dad's family, but I wasn't hadn't experienced it myself. To be honest.
Okay. That's good to know. As a teacher, when you, because it's always it's never how do I say this? It's never the many of students in your class that may, now you may be able to understand this a bit more, but it's never many who come to you asking for help regarding like outside interferences in the beginning, right? It's more so like usually it's like, hey, I'm not understanding this math problem, but what was it like to have a student like in the beginning ask you for help, if any, regarding like stuff regarding home? Or what did it look like regarding seeking students seeking help from you, and how did you navigate that as a student, or not as a student, as a teacher?
What you hope to have at that school are resources that you can direct people to. That you
Mm-hmm.
can say, I understand you're in this situation. Here we have this at the school. I understand here's this what's happening. In the like you're right, in the typical school day, kids are asking you, help me with this, help me with that. It isn't until you really get to know the families, and that my first year of teaching was one which is a terrible policy.
Yeah.
And told a lot of people felt weren't that smart, and we were doing experiments and field with the schools in the country, and they, they won trophies and done really well. And it, I remember a teacher said to me, "This is kind of weird. Not we're very supportive, but we're talking about going to the national championships for North Carolina, California. You school money to do it, and take these kids to the nationals, they will only embarrass themselves." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. The
Yeah.
expectations for those students in that school was zero for a lot of people, not everyone, but that society tends to take people who live in poverty, and it is literally sort of like a jail. Where if the kids don't get out of it, they end up in it. And so chess was that chance. And then through chess, I got to know the families really well. And then you find out what's going on in the families. And then there are those opportunities to help in ways to do things. Um, so chess really became that avenue for me to kind of get to see how things work in the neighborhood, picking up for tournaments, you get a feel for what's going on in the community, and you learn about families, and you learn about how you can help, and sometimes you can't help. So that opportunity, not just for children to get to tournaments and to become first generation with, it was an opportunity for me to see how things work, and it was real learning.
Yeah. And you touched on this a lot, but if we could talk about, 'cause I can imagine how challenging it may be to step outside of the frame of. Can you talk about how what was it like exactly? Like what were some of the hurdles, or what was it like to step outside of the classroom when as you were getting more further into the lives of the youth that you were helping through chess tournaments or just through having a deeper involvement within the communities that you're helping the youth come out of?
There were so many situations that just on a daily basis, encounter like thinking I was driving students to a chess thing, and something was gone by my mind. Wanted to- Right, you're rich. I had never thought of myself as rich before. And I go, what? Why do you think I'm rich? He goes, you got walked in the neighborhood. Like that was just something you was a given growing. You go on sidewalk, and so and that one day at the school at Shackleford, this was years ago now, but the first there was the sewage pipe, the sewage manhole or whatever it was. There was a tallow factory near the school, and it was pumping raw sewage onto the playground. And that would never happen at another school in the district, but that was okay to happen at that school. And so there were all these things that you watched on a daily basis where it was society, in a way, putting upon families and parents to make it even harder when you'd want uh, where you want to encourage opportunity, where you want to encourage things, and you're trying through my chess program to help people get places, and then you see all these things that go on, and you just go, "Oh, that is crazy wrong," and you see how the system doesn't it works against helping people sometimes in a way, and it was just amazing in a sad way to see.
How was it? Did you find any involvement from the community or anybody from the community that was willing to step up outside of the systems, outside of the school system at all, that can help attribute to the efforts that you were willing to put out?
Yeah, I remember the first time I was going to go to a tournament, and we needed to raise money to go to the tournament and for the entry fee. And so a couple things happened. First time I had a bake sale, and so you spend like forever baking a bunch of stuff, and you put it out there, and you sell about a tenth of it, and and, the rest you just got to eat or throw away. And I made like $10, spent like $70, and I was like, I'm just gonna ask people. So I got in the habit of going around to people in the community and just saying, and it could be people on the left, people on the right, if we think about it politically. I just say, I'm trying to take kids to chess tournaments. Do you want to help out? And you got a big response of people go, "Are you trying to do something positive?" Of course, and so I did pay for a lot out of pocket, but I also had this enormous uh, people who I could support. Mentioned there was a lady named Ursula Foster, the late Ursula Foster. She had been in hiding in World War II with Anne Frank. She was Jewish, and she's mentioned in the diary of Anne Frank. And so she would come to the classroom with her star and with her identity and talk. We'd read a book called Number of the Stars. So she would come in and talk about what it was like to be in hiding during World War II. Big chess player and supporter of the program. Another guy, a friend of mine, who ran tournaments, and it was mostly in Silicon Valley. It was a lot of, tech people's children, a pretty wealthy area. And he said, any student you bring to my tournament will be a free entry fee. And his entry fees could be like $60, $80 per student.
Oh,
I calculated sometime that saved me $10,000 to $15,000 because he made it free. And that gave kids an opportunity to go up and compete against what society perceives as the brightest and top students. And so sometimes we'd win, sometimes we'd lose. They'd go up in these tournaments called quads, and sometimes they would lose all their games, sometimes they'd win all their games. But that opportunity to go outside the bubble and compete and perform only happened because that guy chose free for every child. So there were a lot of good people who helped me. There were these sort of institutional obstacles sometimes that you deal with to try to help sometimes. And you're just trying to do a good thing, and then you see all this crazy stuff that's working against what people are trying, and they're trying to even to do a good thing. And so it was just a learning experience for me all the way through, and I enjoyed it. But there are days where you just go, why can't it just be like this? Why do we have to make it hard?
yeah. within those journeys, within that process, I can only imagine what the students are experiencing because a lot of these students, like you say, are coming from hardened backgrounds or hardened environments. And I remember as just growing up where I grew up, once I got a chance to experience new areas, traveling out of the state for the first time, a lot of those came, a lot of times it felt like an out of body experience because
Mhm.
of the news of it. And sometimes it may be normalcy to us, but others may be like a beautiful rose or like a very majestic experience.
It,
So, mhm,
it was every tournament that you took students to was a chance for those students to go somewhere and experience something that they were never going to experience on their own in their own life. They didn't have the resources. But when you could
mhm,
take students and travel, even if it was 30 minutes down the road, or if it was on an airplane to fly somewhere, you were giving them something to say, literally to look at and go, I like this better. How do you get here? This is where I want
yeah,
to be. I don't, I love my family and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't want to end up in this area. Like I said, we were surrounded by all the major Mexican drug gangs. One school, don't wear red or blue. The kids weren't allowed to wear red or blue. And we knew all the little gang signs and the gang language, and we knew when there was going to be trouble. And so, but to take students out of that, who were smart kids, they just wanted a chance. It's really fun. But also in the classroom, I'll never forget this. I had a student, Gloria Magana, and
mhm,
first class I ever taught, and I learned eventually through talking to mom and parents that her dad had passed away tragically, and so wasn't doing in school in jail a lot. And so she told me this story, and I had forgotten actually, but then I remembered that I had told her, if you do your work, I will let you stand up in front of the classroom and tell jokes because she liked
yeah,
telling jokes. She was a very funny kid, and so she got her work done, and that she could go up in front of the classroom and tell jokes. And today she's a stand-up comedian. So, so, so she took
that
it
was
from
I'm sorry.
fourth grade, and now she's a stand-up comedian. And you watch, like going to one tournament. Um, hey, Lorenzo, what are you gonna be when you grow up? And he looked at me. I'll never forget this because I'm gonna be a pimp, right? So
Ooh,
I'm like, oh, okay, all right, fine,
okay.
pimp, whatever. And so today he's a sheriff. And you just look and you go, those things that allowed children to get out of that cycle of poverty where you see generational incarceration. You see the
Yeah,
grandparents have been to jail. You see the parents going to jail. If you give kids a chance to get out of that cycle of poverty, they will go, oh, I like this better. And so all
mhm.
those opportunities were just great. And as I watched the students grow up, I could see how some of them used those chances and did really cool things.
It's amazing. I definitely would like to know more about the comedian for sure. But
Yeah.
I think in asking that question, um I often believe that whenever you're you or someone you love has untapped or unspoken trauma, safe spaces are very important. And within what you're explaining of just learning more about who you are and your story and just learning about the kids that you're describing, it's a beautiful story. And I guess my question is, how were you able to establish a safe space for the kids that you both teach and serve?
In education, in a
Mhm.
classroom, there's a tremendous tendency to praise and reward the successful. kids who get 100%. The kids are getting A's, and you go, okay, look at this kid's a star. Everybody be like that kid. And if you have a classroom that functions that way, you engage 10 to 15% of the kids, maybe 20. It's a great class because they'll all go, oh yeah, I can be like that. But there's a bunch of kids who'll go, I can't be that guy. I'm going through this. I'm struggling with this. And what I decided was when we were working on things, if we had a project and just kind of the day-to-day classroom, was I was going to look at three things. One, success. Success is important. I'm going to talk to that needs to happen. I was going to equally praise a student who was just trying. I didn't know what they had gone through the night before. They might not have gotten any sleep, might have heard their mom and dad yell a bunch. Baby stuff goes on. So that kid could just show up each day and try. I was going to praise them as much as that kid who's getting 100%. And the other person is the kid who improves a little. Like if maybe they got 1 out of 20 on the test, and the next time they got 2, I'm going to go, you doubled your score. That's great. Awesome. I'm so proud of you. And they're going to get as much praise as the kid who got it. In your classroom, you've structured it around, yes, obviously successful. That's great. But if you're trying, if you're improving a little, if you just show up, my room is a room where you're going to hear good things about you. Because I'm not comparing you to the top person in the class. I'm comparing you to yourself. And if you can just show up each day and give me your best, then you're my favorite. And I always tell them, if you do that, you're my favorite. Okay. And you can all be my favorites because you don't have to be like Juan. You don't have to be like Maria. You can just be yourself and try your hardest every day. And I'm going to notice that and I'm going to recognize that in the classroom. I really did consciously try to do that most days. The kids sometimes get in trouble and they do things that aren't right. And you have to have rules too. But if you are focused on finding the good that's in that child and praising them for it, no matter what they've gone through, the types of trauma that exist and poverty and all the kinds of things, they are going to respond positively to you, and it gives them a thought, hey, I can do this.
Absolutely. It's the I like to call it positivity deposits.
Right. Exactly right. And all the kid hears is you're not like that other person. Why don't you be like that? Why can't you do this? No, I mean, I play chess quite a bit. My brother's much better than me. I can last time I beat my brother. If it was, are you as good as your brother? No, I'm not. I'm happy being who I am and doing the things I do. And I'm thrilled for him that he's attained a really high level. So understanding that we value who they are and where they are, and we're looking to invest in those messages that say, we can get through this together. That thing allows a child to grow and really good things.
To be watered, and to be able to plant the seeds of the leadership that is in the youth is a beautiful thing.
I got a good story, if you don't mind that story here.
I love the story.
Okay, so every year that we taught, like this year, I had a 3rd grade, and all of the math curriculum would assume that they knew their multiplication facts. And of course, at the beginning of the year, none of my students knew any multiplication facts. They gave them a little quiz, like, we don't know. But it did happen before. And I had a little process that we learned, multiplication facts really quickly. And at the end, after this 4-week kind of intensive multiplication thing, where we go from 0 students knowing any math facts to like 90% of the class really quickly, we have a competition against the upper grade classroom, like 5th or 6th grade classroom. We kind of pair the students, my best student against their best student, and then they have a little math. They turn it over, and whoever gets it done gets a point for their team, right? So we had a girl who was unbelievably fast, and she was going to beat the top. If she was the 3rd grade best, she was going to beat the 5th grade best. It turned out because there's more 5th graders than 3rd graders. We had no doubt about that, but a week before the competition, in Disneyland next week, and I'm going to miss the competition. Well, she's going to win her pairing, and that was a no-brainer. So I called a group of the students and who were kind of close to her, and I said, anyone want to take on the top fifth and sixth grader? This girl, Adriana, came in and said, I'll do it, Mr. Cripe. I want to take on the best. And so she practices and they studied, and we got to the day of the competition, and go to the library right before the competition. So I can get set up. Going in, Adriana goes, hey, Mr. Cripe, I don't think those boys today.
Oh.
You know what when I look in your eyes, Adriana? Greatness isn't about you winning. You keep, if you keep doing your best, everything you're doing, you're going to have some days where you don't get it. You're going to have some days where you get it, but you are going to do amazing things in life. I said, I don't care one iota if you win or lose today. I value how much you tried and your idea that you could even take on the best when someone else had moved. That impresses me so much. Don't worry about it. So we have to rotate students around. There's two classrooms, and she's sitting there in between a fifth boy and a sixth grade boy who know their math facts really well, and they all have this paper they're going to turn over and do this paper. Whoever gets done wins their little parent. So I go over the rules and I go ready, set, go. And as you hear the paper turn over, you hear the snap. Never heard a snap before. Now look, and it's her pencil break. I put her pencil to the paper to start. Her pencil break. Panics and she goes, Mr. Cripe, so throw her a pencil, which is really good. And if you're a teacher out there, don't throw pencils at your students. It's just a bad thing. But she caught it. And so what happened then was best described the word recess. I went over to the other teacher's class and we mixed up the students and this competition. And I said, what did your students say about what happened in my classroom? That they like it because they really liked it. But they all said the same thing. There was this girl, this third grade girl, and when we started, her pencil break still beat everybody in the classroom. She knew intuitively that I didn't care if she won or lost. I cared and I was appreciative of her effort. And when you tell students, I value you beyond the result, you are important to me no matter what you do. When you do that, you are putting those deposits of positivity into their lives in a way that changes them forever. And so, we won the competition. We had a pizza party. We're all happy. And everybody learned their math facts. So it was a great thing. But I'll never forget, I don't think I can do it. It's not about whether you can do it. It's you're attempting it and you're putting in the work to do it. You're going to get it eventually, no matter what happens. So I'm happy. And if you can say that as a teacher to a child, you change their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I never thought I'd tear up over a broken
pencil. Yeah. I got a bunch of good stories, man, from chess and from teaching. And I just look back and go, I've been blessed because I don't feel like I was particularly great at anything. I just found it was fun. The rule was that they're smiling, they're learning. So if I could get a kid to smile, then they, then I felt like, okay, we can learn. Like one of the things I do is we had enormous mobility. There's a lot of migrant workers. One year I had 8 students stayed with me from the beginning to the end. I had 55 students come through my classroom. So picture that. Just all kinds of new students coming in. And most of the time when a new student come in, I just look at them and their mom would be with them and the administrator would be there, bringing them in the classroom and looking at them and go, okay, I just got one question for you. The most important question I'm going to ask you this year. And their eyes would be all big. I go, do you beat up bald teachers? And they'd look and because everyone in the class knew if it's the second or third student, they knew what I was going to ask. And they'd all start laughing. And the kid would laugh. They go, no. I go, well, then you're my favorite, man. As long as you're not beating up bald guys, I'm good with you, man. Come on, sit down. Let's get going. So if you just have them, if you can get them to smile, you can do really cool things. That was my joy, is to get everyone to do the same page. A lot of music involved. We had a lot of sing along and stuff. It was fun.
Public education. Public education often sparks debate. In your view, what are its greatest strengths and where does it fall short preparing students for the future?
Its greatest strength, by far and away, is that we attempt to give everyone a good education. That does not mean there's not disparities between, schools where the, the going to the scores, India did this or Finland did this or wherever did this. We're not, Germany did this. Those school systems are set up differently. They're not always trying to teach the kids who are in poverty. So they may have kind of a disaffected scores, at least our ability to interpret them because they're not preparing everyone. We attempt to educate everyone. We try to provide opportunity for everyone. It doesn't always work out great, but it's what we're trying to do. And that purposing to do it is a good thing. Now, and so I am 100% behind public school teachers trying to teach in this crazy political environment now, as I got out of just before it really started to go wacky. So I think there's an enormous amount of strength and reservoir and goodwill and things that we are aspiring to that are noble. We are putting upon new teachers, especially in a way that's driving teachers out of school, good teachers, people who care about education. And so you see, I think the turnover rate of the first 3 years is almost like 50%. 50% of teachers just leaving school to go do something else because it's just what they're being asked to do, the amount of monitoring of stuff that's going in their classroom, to some extent bad administration, or administration that doesn't really clue about what teaching is. All of those things, to me, are drive education negatively, and you can see people turning, and that massive turning away of teachers is a really bad sign. It's a concern because you need veteran teachers. Veteran teachers are not perfect. Veteran teachers provide. When I first got into teaching, there were people who would come to me and say, "You need to think about this. You need to think about this." There were a reservoir of information that help new teachers, and if what's happening is all the new teachers are not getting much wisdom, and it's just this enormous bureaucracy that's telling them to do it this and this way, and you're driving them, and that's going to hurt public education. I'll give you an example of when I was teaching in first college, there was something called the No Child Left Behind. Okay?
Yes.
So it was put together by George Bush and Ted Kennedy, right? So right and left, they came together. They said, we're going to help every child. And in schools like mine, where there's a high turnover rate, they had this system where, okay, year one, 20% of your kids are going to be advanced or proficient on a test. Okay, year two, 30%, then 40%, and 8 years, you're going to have 100% of your students at advanced or proficient on a test, right? And so then every school is going to be, all kids are successful. Well, it didn't account for the fact that we have students moving in and out of this, like I told you before. So if you get a new student from Mexico who doesn't read or speak English, and you just lost your student who's your best student in your class, which I had happen a few times, you're not going to go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60%, because the dynamic of what's going on at your school doesn't allow it to happen. And they haven't thought that through really well. To get, a lot of times, I have a political view, but a lot of times it's both sides who are clueless trying to tell teachers in the classroom or administrators or school districts, here's what you need to do. And they really haven't thought it through. And that is enormously problematic in trying to find things that we need to get done when we're being told to do something ridiculous.
Well, I see that here in Georgia, funny enough, I remember a few years ago there was a huge, substantial teacher shortage, and they were paying teachers to come back or even substitute teachers. But that was an influx. That was a inconsistency within here as well. But I want to.
Go ahead. Keep going. You're right. It's just that teacher shortages are going to be part of life until they kind of figure out how they want to treat teachers.
And that's just like that's the. These are very instrumental within a child's early childhood development. Is the teacher is the one who pours in and gives them the tools for success alongside the institution of family. So hopefully one day we can come together and find a way.
I think you hit it right. I think family is preeminent. Now, within certain children, there is no family. There's a really weak family. But another very important thing in getting it right is one of my things, and one of the last kind of teachers. One of the things, one on Sunday someplace, and Liliana, and she goes up to the tournament, competing against mostly boys, and in the first tournament on Saturday, she's playing her last one, she went to first place. So she makes a bad move and loses the first. How's that? And she is just in tears. Goes and finds her mom, and her mom puts her arms around her. Doesn't say anything. Nothing I can say. I don't get mad at kids for losing. I don't value them more for winning. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I go, you talk to your daughter, love her. You want to talk tomorrow. You don't, you don't literally. Another thing. So she came up the next day and similar tournament, she's playing almost all boys, and she went first place. I'll send you the picture. But I always thought it was the mom. One is 50% at least for mom. You didn't get it this time, but I love you. And when kids hear that, they are going to do amazing things. When you allow, C.S. Lewis, founding father of apologetics, or one of them, said we move forward towards success. We all have to learn our way, and we're going to make mistakes. And it's the people behind us who are not saying you did it right. They're saying we love you regardless. And when that happens, and you can go and try something and fail, and know you're going to be loved, you're going to get it right, and you're going to do it better than anybody could have ever imagined. So I just remember her holding that trophy. I'll send you the pic. And so that was parenting right there. It's not coaching. Sit there and said, care about you, hope good. So important. Positive influence. And that doesn't mean that children do everything right, or that if they do something terrible, there's no discipline or structure or anything like that. But when they're trying their best, to be there and be supportive of them.
Absolutely. Chess is often seen just as a game, right? But does learning chess actually translate into academic growth or cognitive skills regarding learning or for students at all?
There is a lot of debate about that. And I listened to it. I read a book called The Learning Spiral, all the data. Probably is some small way that children learning chess helps them. But to me, it's like learning the discipline to learn anything well. When I tell students who want to be part of chess club, I say, we're not here to play chess. We're here to study it first. You have a love of study. I want to play piano. Do you want to just hit the keys, or do you want to get good at it? I want to learn basketball, or I want to learn soccer. Or you just want to go throw the ball through the hoop by yourself and feel successful? Or you want to get good and be competitive? So it's a competitive environment. And if you have that discipline, when you display that discipline to study on your own, I tell students, I'm never going to come to your house, knock on your door, and ask if you're studying. It's not my job, it's my parents' job. If you have that internal mechanism that says, I need to do this, I'm going to practice, I'm going to study, that's anything, right? So providing them the skill set and giving them and doing some checking, and there's some rewards involved, but it's really up to the student who wants to make themselves better at something. And chess, if it's that thing, it's a great thing because it involves thinking, it involves calculation. The knight is worth 3, but sometimes it's worth a lot more in certain positions. The rook is worth 5, but sometimes it's worth a lot less if it's not being particularly used very well. So it's a big giant calculation. So there is an ability to calculate and evaluate how things change over time and stuff like that. So that's important. But I think the main thing is it's a student who has the desire to put in the time and wanting to. Those things do really well.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something before, another beautiful story, as you are with all the stories you've shared thus far, about the importance of family regarding Liliana. I want to get her name right. That's
But like Liliana,
Liliana's story and how the mom and you are creating a space for her to recognize that it's okay to fail forward. Um, and and did I capture that correctly? Or
you did. That parent who just says, I'll put my arms around you and love you in this
Mhm.
situation is singularly the most important thing because it allows children to feel secure in the storm. You know,
Abs-
um, that everything is going wrong. Place I can go where I feel secure and I don't feel like I'm a loser. I don't feel like I've done bad. And to have each child have that sense of risk. If I don't get it right, there's no running away. That happens when you create an environment where yes, success is good. I love to see kids win trophies. I mean, we take pictures,
Mhm.
we bring them back to school, show your teacher. Uh, but if they tried hard, if they've improved, if they're doing, I'm going to tell them about that too. And as a parent, those messages of, yeah, it didn't go your way this time, but you tried, and I love you just the same as if you won a trophy. Um, that is a powerful message.
Absolutely. And as we pivot forward, I know we mentioned within talking a bit off record about you yourself are a parent.
I am. I have 3 adopted children from Guatemala. They're
Mhm.
adults, and um, you know, and oldest middle is a same with the name Kevin in Guatemala. In fact, his middle initial is the same as mine. And
Oh,
H. So he's Kevin H. Cripe, and I'm Kevin H. Cripe, but I had nothing to do with his name. But yeah, they're adults, and there was a divorce back there after they'd been here a few years, where I spent I think about 80% of the time. Maybe. Children, I mean, my children from Guatemala, and I had to learn how that is different. That experience is different than when they were with me than when they were by themselves. And and so all the time, when I was 19 years old, and said, what were you doing? I go, first question, what were you wearing? Because if you're wearing some gang stuff, then I don't even, doesn't bother me. Please don't. Wearing this? No, I just wearing this. And I go, okay, I know that's not gang related. And what
mhm.
were you drinking? I just drinking a Pepsi. Okay, so where were you? Okay, it was the University of Cal State Stanislaus, and it's 1 in the afternoon. Right? And we walking across the campus, drinking a Pepsi. Police roll up on you. He goes, yeah. They told me to get off the campus. I was really mad. I was just really, really mad. And so I called the president of the university. It's one of the major universities in California. So why were your security people? Why were your police stopping my son for just walking at 1 in the afternoon? Because that wasn't us. For lots of reasons. What? I called the Turlock Police Department and get a hold of it. Let me see. My name's Kevin Cripe. My son was stopped by the police. I want to know what happened. And he looked, and I will not forget this till the day I die. He said, "Your son one taking a Pepsi. Told never to go back on that campus." And I look at my son. I go, "Dude, how you walk suspiciously?" And he goes, I hung up, and it just dawned on me that would have never happened to me.
Right.
That would have never happened if he was with me. That's only going to happen if he's by himself. And that as much as I was a teacher in schools that have poverty, as much as I tried to help children in poverty, I couldn't have that experience of that person because their experience, because the color of their skin is different than mine, it's going to be way different as they go through life. And I just had to understand at that moment. And there were other things that happened to my children where I kind of went, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I make a difference? What can I do? And so being a parent in this case was learning about how what I was given privilege. So I'm not going to be stopped walking suspiciously at 1 in the afternoon. And it's not. But my son was. And plenty of other people are who live that somehow because of the color of their skin, they're more suspicious than other people. And that's wrong. It's horrifically wrong. But it's part of the problem we have in the United States that we have a hard time talking about. Hard conversations.
Yes. And I guess that leads right into my next question. What was it like to navigate as a parent with three children of color? What was it like to navigate those experiences along with them regarding the experiences of them growing up in your home? And just as a part to that question, um, what was it like to have those hard conversations within the household with them being children of color?
There was in our family, which is my mom and dad, my brother, sister, and their children, there was always a really good sense of humor. We could laugh about things. We're all sitting around playing cards. My son looks and they go their way. They just look and go, just whatever. We had a sense of humor. They were like, okay, so we got that there's color, there's differences. Um, so there could be honest conversations. Hey, this is what's going on, and you just need to be careful. Like I said, if you're wearing gang related stuff, okay, maybe you're not a gangster, but you're not helping yourself out either, right? Um, and all these things, you had to kind of look and decide. Well, like, she's angry. She's angry about the divorce, angry about life, and she hung out. My daughter, as an adolescent, would hang out with the um, children who of interracially incarcerated people and people who had gone to juvenile hall. So her group was a tough group. She was never mean. That was just her group. That's who she hang with. She would wear all black every day to school, black sweatshirt. Could be 100 degrees outside. She didn't care. She was going to wear black. She was not a good student. She was not liked by her teacher. She talked too much and didn't do her homework. Okay. Wasn't mean. She was never mean, always loving. So one day, um, school's over. She's walking across the campus, and a group of really popular student, picking on a boy, have to be gay, right? Calling him names, saying terrible words to him, making him cry. My daughter came upon this situation and she wanted to walk and teasing people. But what she did was she got herself literally between the boy and the crowd, pointed at the crowd. Why don't you? Later, I get a call from the vice principal of Sherlock Junior High School and said, I was in my class and cleaning up after school. And my daughter, why? Drove down to school, a little bit of sarcasm in my thoughts sometimes. I'm never going to get that bumper sticker on my car that says my daughter was a student of the month at Sherlock Junior High School. But then I went down and he told me the story just as I told you the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look at my daughter and I go, is that what you said? And is that what you did? He said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Dad. So I looked at the vice principal and I said, way too much. I knew what I was going to do later. I got one question for you. What's going to happen to the bullies? The white bullies, right? Um, he looked at me and he said, nothing's going to happen to the bullies. Moment, with injustice. You're trying to think of words you can say that won't get you put in jail. Because I would not look good in orange, right? So, and there's a bunch of stuff that just rushed through my head. And I don't say that, don't say that. So what I ended up saying to the vice principal is, there's a lot of problems at the school, and you are most of those problems. One, have a nice day. So we're walking out of the car, and look at my daughter. I go, one important school never going to help you. Using bad words at school doesn't help teachers, doesn't help administrators, not going to help you. Could we just leave the bad words at the gate? And there's lots of bad words out there where we hear them all the time, but just don't bring it into school. The second thing, and it's eternally.
Yeah.
20 years of teaching. I can't think of a time where I've seen another student stand up for someone who's being picked on and literally take that abuse to be on the side of the marginalized and take that abuse from across to that person. There's zero. I mean, I'm going to go spend the day, 3 days at grandma and grandpa's, which she'd love. And I call grandma, my mom, and I say, here's what she did. She's not being funny. I want you to have fun with her for 3 days. Okay. So she got to go to grandma and grandpa's for 3 days and have fun. And then the way I go, we're going to celebrate your suspension. And in my house, because I was a single dad, what we did to celebrate was that where we go to dinner. So we went to Olive Garden 3 nights. She got to go to Olive Garden 3 nights in a row. And she got to go to grandma 3 days in a row. So it was this big celebration that she got it. She was on the right side. And that matters to me. And when you're raising children, that matters to you. School, all her friends who are kids who are in trouble said, hey, we heard you got suspended for 3 days. What happened? What did your dad do? And he said, well, well, Olive Garden 3 nights in a row. Well, so part of that experience is knowing when to fight. There are a couple times in life when I know it's not going to children in the school. I know I'm a lot of that. Sometimes let the kids go. They're doing their best. And I told my mom, you did the right thing. You were on the side of the kid who's being picked on and bullied, and you stood up for that kid. And I love you so much. Keep being that person as an adult. Grow up. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to get some things wrong. that have that heart for other people. And so that's kind of how I parented my children. I look for things. If there's something wrong, I was calling. No, don't do that. It's wrong. Um, As the Brian Hardest, I was going to say, hey, I'm really impressed. Thank you. Yeah, I love you so much. You're doing great. That's just, to me, it's parenting. And I'll give you this sort of paradigm to think about. Children watch what their parents are in private and what they are in public, right? So there's four possibilities, right? There are parents who are bad in private and bad in public. And intriguingly, if a child can survive that environment, they intuitively know, I don't want this. If they can see something better, if they go on a trip and, I go to my friend's house and they're really nice. I want that, right? So that's not good. We don't want that, but there's an idea that in their head they can go, yes, I want something different. There is the parents who do good and are good in private and good in public, not perfect. The kids grow up, they do pretty well. They have a good moral sense about them. Like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do. Here's what I'm supposed to be. There is the parents who in public put on airs and talk about how wonderful, how we should love, how we should be, all this stuff. But in private, they're just angry, cursing, wretched people. Those children, figuring out because they see one thing in public and they experience the other thing. They experience anger and they experience mean words and they experience mean actions. And then they hear the parents talking about how much they want justice or how much they love Jesus or whatever it is that in public, they're always these, wonderful, sweet people, but they come home and are terrible. Those kids have a real struggle about who they are and what they want to be. It's not a problem for the kids who's experienced nothing but bad. It's better, right? It's the kids who are growing up hearing in a public way, I want all we love, we do all these good things, we're so special, and then in private the parents are terrible. And if I have the chance to talk to parents, be what you are in public and private. Have it be the thing because your kids are watching and listening to everything you do. You know, my dad had preached a sermon one Sunday, and we were all in the back of the car, and we're driving home from the sermon, and a beautiful sermon, and he gets pulled over by a police, and he gets really mad at the police officer who give him a ticket for running that stop sign. There's a cursing at the police officer, right? Because why don't you believe me? You should be, just 15 minutes after his sermon, and he wasn't like this normally, but we were all in the back, and we didn't say anything because we're just kids, and we knew Dad was mad, and so but then later, as we became adults, and my dad would preach an occasional sermon, we'd go, "Well, Dad, did you flip off a police officer on the way home? Did you go by what did you say? Or did you just get mad and curse after you preached the sermon?" And so kids watch and listen, and he would always just kind of go, "Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, I feel." So as adults, as children, we were never going to tease our dad about that. But as adults, we took great joy in pointing out that to our dad was a little inconsistent there with his sermon. You can't preach about God's love and then be cursing at police officers 10 minutes later. But all children watch and they listen to what their parents are. And if you are doing your best to be authentic and consistent, it maximizes your children's chance to grow up and make good decisions. Not that they can make perfect decisions. That's what you want to do as parents. That's my message.
So we had the opportunity to talk about the role of the educator and the role of the father, but I feel like it's fitting to talk about the role of the author. And as to do so, I had the opportunity to read a few of the books that you sent over, and I wanted to know what was some of the inspirations behind the stories, behind the books that you sent. I believe it was really good, very interesting within the one about the boy who cried hoax. And then you have other ones like Princess Max, and of course the one I have in front of me right now, The Good War. But if you could talk about some of your inspirations or even the things behind the books or what these books kind of entail in a way, from your point of view.
Lived okay, when I retired from teaching, I moved to Panama, Boquete, Panama. It's a lovely community. It's just beautiful. And it was there. I was there during COVID, but I was also there during. I'll just say Trump won. Trump first time he's president. And I was sitting there, and I learned not to do this, but I was watching news from the U.S. and I was just watching a lot of crazy stuff. And I wonder if I can have an illustrated book that kind of talked about what happens if we have leaders who are angry and mad and manipulative and the whole thing. So I wrote The Little Boy Who Cried Wolf originally was the title. Then I changed it out The Little Boy Who Cried Hope, and people recognize the word hope more. Illustrated, and I really liked it. And it turns out it's a really dark political allegory, and it really is not a children's book per se. Um, but I did like writing, and I enjoyed it. And a few years later, as I was sitting there then in COVID in Boquete, Panama, and I had this bedroom house to myself, and it had a backyard that went into a jungle, and I could walk over to this hotel parking lot. And it was not a hard time in COVID in Boquete, Panama. So I had a lot of hours to write. And I had a boy go to Princess Max who was American, he was a 9 years old boy named Alex, biracial. And one day we were having chess, and there were like 9 Panamanian students in my group. And Alex, like I think 8 years old, came in, and he's wearing a floor-length blue dress, right? And he just looked at this sort of joyous expression because this is my favorite Cinderella dress. Like, I honestly had never seen a boy in a dress before, and like I thought 27 years. But I didn't care either. It doesn't matter to me. Kids are kids. And so I just looked and go, that is lovely. Why don't you sit down? And so all the students were watching me, and they were like, he doesn't care if boys and a guy don't care. We're all going to learn chess together. And if they had a problem with it, they could kids for who they are, right? And so then while I was sitting there in Boquete in COVID, I was like, between that story and then kind of knowing a lot of the friends of my daughter, there's a story about Princess Max. I wanted it to be a boy who's really confident. And so that story got made. For Tennessee, was Imperial Wizard, Grand Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And as of the year 1980, and maybe still today, I don't know, his bust was in the State House of Tennessee. They honored and revered the Grand Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That's great. And you can Google it. There were schools named after him. Okay, like I don't know that that's a great idea. I don't know that now I want to go to or school. But I thought if there was a story there I could write about an African American student board school and deal with racism.
Yeah.
And deal with real direct racism and what that would be like. And so there's a teacher in there. He has Miss Margie. My mom's name was Marjorie. And wonderful people in ways in at school. But then she has to talk to the parent of the boy. All the answers to the story I really wanted to write. When I got done with it, I looked at it, and there's questions at the end of it that I like to put questions at the end of each book that you can talk to. I think The Good War and Princess Max are both very readable stories to children. Yeah. I don't know that The Little Boy Cried Hoax is really one. It's just sort of a political allegory that starts. But the other two, I think, really work well, and I've heard that from a lot of people. And they say things like, we couldn't, in Texas, I get sort of a bureaucratic banning of particularly Princess Max, because they don't want a book like that in a school. and they don't want it. So like they subsidize the book fairs, a lot of the book fairs. So if you're trying to go to a book fair, no, can't get Princess Mac on a book fair because the state of Texas is monitoring the books that come in. So there's going to be a reaction from some who don't like it. But most of the people, I did a reading at Travis Park Methodist Church in San Antonio, where I go to church. People there really liked it, and the people there have really liked the books and think they're good books. So I know some people are going to like things, not going to like it. But my journey as an author was as I connected to things, like I was going to put my mom in a story, right? I didn't want to put my mom in this. My mom, you just have to picture she loved students. Every single day before school, she would go around from desk to desk, put her hand over that desk, and pray for each child. She did that for 40 years in a row. And there's no doubt. And no matter who those children were, no matter what they looked like, no matter where they came from, she loved them all. And I ran into when I changed schools, a lady came up to me and she says, "Are you Mosley Cripe?" Hey, yeah. Two things about it. You knew she loved you. That's true. You also knew you didn't want to make her mad.
Oh,
Yeah, you knew that. I knew that too. So she was going to be in a story. The Princess Max is an incorporation of some things I had thought through, and watching my daughter go through things, and watching the boy in chess. And so I kind of look at things as an author and go, do I have the time, effort, and energy, and want to write? But then it's getting things illustrated, and you'll notice that each book has a different illustrator. And I don't know how it happened, but each illustrator matches the sort of vibe I wanted to have for each story. And you can look at the illustrations, they're all different. Good War, there's some, if you really look at the pictures in there and you look at the illustrations, the words, it's an amazingly well done illustrator. They did that. But Princess Max got some pictures in there that are just unbelievable. And then the guy who did the Little Boy Cried Hope, guy from Venezuela who lives in Colombia now, and they're all uniquely different, but they all really match the story I want to do. So the joy of being an author when you're getting a book illustrated is to find the illustrator who best represents what you want to say. And in that case, as I'm reading through stories, like when I do a book reading, I'm looking, going, that's exactly what I wanted. That is what I wanted. They did it perfectly, and that's true for all three books. So it's kind of it's not like a child in a way, but you created something, you see it, you see people go, oh, we really like that. To me, it's just fun when I get it. There are some other books I want to write, but for now, I'm focused on these three books.
How important is it to tell these stories, and how instrumental do you believe these stories are in not only when we talk about childhood development, but what it means ultimately as from a societal standpoint? And I'm gonna step away from the camera real quick but I'm gonna be right here. I'm just looking my charge up to the laptop.
Got it. No problem. So I'll talk while you're doing that. So my thing is that I would love to see, particularly with the two books of the war and they are issues of the day, race and gender and all these things that I think the books are open conversation. For that, of course, I would like people to buy lots of books because but I wrote books because I like writing, and I've done some writing. So it's been seen, when I'm doing the readings, when I do readings, and I'm looking at people, and it's being something's read, and you see their eyes. Love it. And so if it's a group of 100 people, that's awesome. If it's a group of 2 people, I don't care, because if I'm reading and seeing that they're enjoying it, it's a good vibe. Would I like to see, the books in libraries and book fairs and places where people have access to them and can look at them? And and read them, I would love that. Then why I'm on podcast and things. So, but I read books that I happen to like writing, and I like what I wrote, and I like the way they were illustrated. And I do think in those areas, particularly of race and identity, who we are, uh, we're talking about other things and talking about race, those areas we have a very, very hard time talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So these books, The Good War and The Little Boy Who Cried, now The Good War and Princess Max, give parents an opportunity to boy, man, a little bit over the top sometimes. And it's not, and you can say, should he be really said this? Could he, how could have this happened? Would have this, or in The Good War, would this be the decision you would make? If the mom makes a decision or the family makes it, what do you think should have happened? There's all kinds of questions. And I think good books lead themselves to adults asking questions. I mean, I read, my favorite thing to do in the classroom was read. Um, Books were the ones where I'm reading it and the kids like it, but I'm going, oh, that's what he put something in there for me, for the adult. And then I can kind of explain that to the kids. And so I wanted books that adults would appreciate, but that would be kid friendly. So
Nice, nice. As we wrap up the interview, it was just to hear your story, hear the multiple journeys along the way within your 27 years, even through teaching and even as the honor and title of parent. And I love to ask my question. I love to ask the guest this one particular question, and that is, what would you say your why is for what you've had the opportunity to do, or the blessing to do, the privilege to do? And is your why something that you found during the journey, at the destination, or before the journey starts?
I think my why came at the start of the journey. It goes back to the story I told initially about the don't take these students to nationals. So, the why that's fine with me. But at that moment in time, what was crystallized was I had taught all year. My students were smart and needed an opportunity. And someone was saying, "Don't do this. Don't do it." And I knew at that moment this is something I have to do. And like I said, I had lots of people help me out. I probably over 20 or $100,000 out of my own pocket. What I do, I'm never going to get back and don't want it back. And to see the amount of things that have come out of the lives of students, good things, because they had that opportunity. That why started with don't do this for it. Pay for it. I have to do it all myself. I'm going to do it for a long time. And that student thing focused at school. This is just going to be what I'm going to do. And I wasn't really particularly mad. I was determined. Feeling they took the school for a reason. The last person in an interview group of four that got a job because the first two didn't want it. I was going to make the most of my opportunity, and be given that chance to impact the lives of children in a positive way, doing what I was doing. That was my why. My why, and why I want people to get older. Don't do as much these days as I used to do, but good. Life's good. Been blessed. If I fall over the cliff tomorrow, fun. It'll be good. No complaint. So to me, um, like I said, I grew up in this wonderful, loving home that it's kind of like a terrarium in a way, where
Mhm.
I remember meeting. I think I met my first person of color, first Mexican person in high school. There were there just so I had a lot to learn, and that going to the school and being a teacher at a school where 90% of the students were free and reduced lunch, and 90% of the students were Hispanic, and all the drug gangs around and everything was just enormously challenging but awesome experience, because it told me there's a bunch of kids out there who, if given the opportunity, can do amazing things. And that is why how I found my why.
That's beautiful. So, with that being said, is there anything that you would like to tell the viewers, the listeners out there who are listening that are trying to find their way, or that believe that they may be unqualified or may not know how to go about what they want to do on this big blue sphere?
Have bring close friends who can tell you you're wrong and you listen to them. Something has to do with them. One of the things you have to learn to listen to people who tell you, like, "Kevin, have you heard this?" You can be, when you're young, you can be headstrong and think you can do anything. And I've been that person before. Move on, you realize that a lot of people are telling you, think about this. So get people in your life that you listen to. Have that determination, have that sense that I can do it, but also have the sense that there's going to be people out there who will tell you things you don't like, but are trying to do the best to help you too. And when you can connect like that, and connect with other people, and work together, we don't all have to be alike. Like I say, and when I'm in Costa Rica, there's a church I go to. A lot of people, pretty conservative people, but when it's time to help out in the community, they help everyone. They have good hearts. Preacher doesn't talk politics from the pulpit. I like that a lot. I mean, he's good.
Mhm.
In San Antonio, group of people are with on the left end of things. Um, but when it's time to help out in the community, when there's homeless, when there's people who have need, they show up and help. You're going to get help in a lot of different ways from people you might not have suspected would ever be interested in helping you. And you'll be able to look back in your life and just be thankful for those people. You go, well, I didn't like what they were saying at the time, and then you realize they were trying to do the best thing for you. So, well, wherever that help comes from, and don't look at people necessarily by what they say, because a lot of people say a lot of things. I get words wrong all the time. What they're doing to impact their community? How do they help other people? If you can surround yourself with people who are helping other people, you can work. You can work with almost anyone. Okay, you get someone who's out there blathering mean, angry words. Well, they don't want to work with anyone. They're off in their own little world. But there's a lot of people out there who just want to see good things happen in their community, and find a way to work with people, and you're going to find your purpose and your why, and lead a blessed life.
Mhm. Well, thank you. With that being said, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. I'm thankful for this conversation, and there's many of these stories that I'll be taking with me for a lifetime. If there's any where that can find you, if you can, or if you have any new books or anything coming out, like, the floor is now yours.
Okay, I'm going to send you. I'll get you the list of connections where people can get the books, on the website, and then my own other website. I'll get you that information. And if people want to contact me, I'd appreciate it. That'd be fun. I'd love to come talk, or do whatever, do a book reading. It's all fun. And I'm in the U.S. now, so it's easy for me to get from place to place in the U.S. So it'll be a joy, and I'm thankful for each person who has me on. So thank you, Reggie, and thank you for your life, for what you're doing and attempting to do. Um, your life hasn't been easy, I don't think. I think by no stretches. And to see the good things that you're doing and the way you want to impact the lives of students and communities and children, I'm just really impressed. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. With that being said, this has been Outreach with Reggie. Remember to be kind to your neighbors, to show up for your community, and most importantly, show up for yourself. Thank you, and take care, you guys. Amen.